Alrighty guys, welcome back. It is now June 30th of 2023. Given that this is the day of Indiana Jones 5 and its release date, there's a lot of people that have mixed reactions and or reviews about this thing. We've been hearing a lot from you guys and your theater experience, and we've been going through, by the way, exactly what your movie theater is looking like, whether it's empty or full. If you guys would like to participate about that below in the comments, let us know below how full or empty your local theater is for Indiana Jones 5 for this upcoming weekend. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. And let's get right into what's really going on here with Steven Spielberg, the executive producer of Indiana Jones 5. Now, what's interesting about the Dial of Destiny is that we know that this is basically going to be a make or break situation for Lucasfilm as a company. Now, they invested nearly $300 million into this thing. I believe that they went way over budget for what it's worth, because there are multiple scenarios in this movie where the CGI is obviously lacking, it comes across as undone, and it makes you wonder to yourself, where did all this money go for Indiana Jones 5? They had little to no marketing for a very long time, up until recently with the whole Applebee's thing and the whole New York City subway fiasco. We talked about that as well. But what's interesting further is what Spielberg had to say about his take on a female version of Indiana Jones, and how this was actually in the talks for Indy 5 and almost happened. It actually was also going to actually happen at one point in time for the Indy 5 movie, and he also goes over how he supports this. Let's go into this. Now, with Steven Spielberg promoting Indy 5 ahead of the Dial of Destiny's box office results to boost sales for tickets for Disney, he eventually got on a very controversial subject where Spielberg delivered the following. Well, listen, plenty people have been asking about a female Indiana Jones or reversing the gender of that character, and I stand by my opinion, as I did a couple of years ago, that I have absolutely no problem with that. Of course, many fans probably wouldn't like this, but who cares, really? I mean, come on. I can see them doing a female James Bond. We already saw a female version of Thor through Natalie Portman, so that's living proof it can work. No issues with that. You just have to change the names around, something like Indiana Jones with an A, or something like that, or Jamie Bond for the Bond franchise. They did it with Thor successfully when they can do it with all other successful characters for the most part. That's the magical word there, most. But we actually did have discussions about this when pitching Indy 5 and going through the story of the possibility of Indiana having some long-lost daughter or something similar to what Mutt was in Indy 4, and having her become Indiana Jane or Joan or whatever and taking up that mantle. So guys, let me pause here for a second. This, I believe, is just pure insanity, alright? Some of you guys out there may totally disagree with me on this, and that's fine, but look, here's the hard truth. This does not work. Honestly, it would never work. A female Bond, a female Indiana Jones, just don't even try to support that. You know, Lucasfilm, please, ever, ever, ever. And we know that's not going to happen with Barbara Broccoli. I would never see her doing that with Bond, ever. It would break the franchise in two. But look, here's the deal. We know that Spielberg talked about this back in 2018, and he kind of references that also a little bit later down the road. We'll talk about that too, of how he heavily supports that, and how if you did pursue that, you'd have to change the name around. Alright? So, at the end of the day, look, when you look at Tomb Raider, she's basically the Indiana Jones female iteration, but they did it in a way where it's a totally different character. I don't see why Hollywood even has these kind of thoughts that are in place of really gender swapping some of the characters. We know that Kathleen Kennedy even mentioned this before in the past related to Star Wars, that she had all these ideas of going back to the Legends material and gender swapping some of those characters to be used in future upcoming shows or movies. She suggested that in some of the past interviews back in 2019 when The Rise of Skywalker was coming out. That really led a lot of people to get very angry about that. And look, both Kennedy and Spielberg, though they have had their differences and arguments before in the past years ago, Spielberg admitted to that as well. they both think in a very similar way. I mean, these are two people that would love a female Indiana Jones to take over the franchise and to really kind of kickstart a new era of that brand. Moving on. He elaborates further. You know, give her the hat and the whip and call it a day, and the family can take on that legacy while also transforming the brand's name. So we did have those plans. I talked it over with Kathy, and she was all for it at one point, but it was short-lived. Mangold really did not want to go through with that at all once he stepped on board as the creator of this film, and we respected that. It wasn't something that we kept in the talks for a long time, I would say, but we did think about this seriously for a couple of weeks to keep Indy and his family going throughout generations. It was our way of creating a female iteration of the character to keep the brand going. Different yet familiar, but it didn't work out. So, look, here's the thing about Spielberg, is that you gotta remember that this guy is executive producer of Indy 5, and he is getting a quite big paycheck out of this thing, alright? Now, say what you will about Indy 5, look, there's a lot of people out there that have mixed reactions on this movie already. I'm noticing that there's a lot of people coming out of this thing and saying, oh, it was a great movie, and Phoebe Waller-Bridge was excellent, etc., etc. Meanwhile, you have other people that are saying how she was insufferable, she was very hard to even follow, she makes all the decisions. A lot of people did not like how she overshined Indiana Jones in this film, yada yada yada, right? All these different back and forth reviews and scenarios that we see online. It's interesting, given that we're only about 2 days in of this movie heading into theaters. I think it's going to be more interesting to see what happens with the box office results by this Monday to see how it performs this weekend, and ultimately what happens after July 4th, alright? That's going to be a big deal, because if it doesn't perform well throughout the July 4th week, I think that it's a telltale that this movie is absolutely going to flop, and they're not going to even break even. Now, we know that Bob Iger believes that it's going to break $1 billion at the box office worldwide. He says that they're very much optimistic about those numbers, about those statistics, and that they have been analyzing things very carefully and tracking this thing very subtly. And I gotta say, I mean, I think he's out of his mind too. I mean, I don't see this thing breaking even. I don't see it making $1 billion at the worldwide box office. Look, I mean, Fast X flopped. I know it's not really Disney, by the way, but Flash flopped, and Elemental, a Disney one, got destroyed. So I don't really know if this movie's even meant for the current generation of, you know, teenagers or young adults that never really grew up with this franchise. That's another big, you know, deal breaker right then and there. They're really relying on the fans, the true indie fans, and a lot of indie fans aren't fond of him not being the main character, or this being his main movie, with Helena Shaw really kind of overshining him in this film. So, anyways, guys, drop a comment below, fill me in below what you all have to say about this, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys next time.
From night to moon, we hear them moans again.